Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another Mystery Monday where we're diamond painting a mystery canvas and I tell you about a real life mystery. This week, we're going to be talking about the Dyatlov Pass Incident, and I just want to warn you up front that this mystery is a little bit more dark and disturbing than some of the other mysteries we've talked about, and it does involve real life death and injuries and descriptions of those. So if that is not really your cup of tea, that is totally okay. Click off of the video. Don't listen to this one if that kind of stuff bothers you. No problem at all. We'll catch you in another video. But if you are interested in this one, I recommend sticking around because we can't talk about unsolved mysteries without talking about the Dyatlov Pass mystery because it is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time. Now, like I said, it is dark and it is disturbing, but it's so strange and unsettling. There are so many theories and so much contradicting information for those theories. It is wild. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the backstory. Let's talk about what happened, what we do know, what we don't know, and what the theories are. Now, the Dyatlov Pass incident occurred in the Ural Mountains in 1959. This happened when a group of hikers set off January 25th, 1959. Now, originally, the group started off as 10 hikers, and this was not your casual hiking, camping trip. This was a really advanced hike that they were taking, and they were certified grade 2 hikers. And once they completed this trek, they would become grade 3 hikers, which is the highest rank in Russia for hiking. So they were not novice hikers, they were experienced hikers, and they were on their way to become the highest ranked hikers. And this trek that they were taking through Dyatlov Pass was a very advanced trail. And it didn't always used to be called Dyatlov Pass. It actually became Dyatlov Pass after they named it for the leader of this group, Igor Dyatlov. So they started off January 25th, and it was a group of 8 men and 2 women. Now, a couple of days into the trip, one of the hikers, his name was Yuri Yudin, he started to get really bad joint pain, and he had sort of been having some medical problems, and he gets into it, his joint pain flares up, and he decides he's only going to slow the group down. He can't do that to them. So he decides that he's going to turn back and go home, and he'll wait for them back there. Now, little does he know that his medical problems have actually saved his life, because he says goodbye to them, he goes back home, and that's the last time he'll ever see his group of friends. Now, upon leaving the group, he talks to the leader, Igor Dyatlov, and Igor says that he expects the trip to take about 16 days, maybe a few additional days because of the severe weather that they're heading into. But he says he'll send Yuri a telegraph when they get to their destination. And when that telegraph does not come, Yuri gets concerned. He reports the group as missing. And so they send out a search party, and the search party does find the tent of the group of 9 that were left hiking. And what's disturbing is they find the tent and they realize that the tent was cut from the inside, suggesting that they were inside the tent and something scared them and they cut their way out and they left. Now, they moved away from the campsite and they found their footprints in the snow, and what was disturbing was the footprints. They could tell some had shoes on and most of them did not. So they got out of this tent in such a panic that some of them didn't even put shoes on. And what was strange, though, was they say that the footprints were not scattered and sporadic. They were almost organized and in a single file, as if they had walked or ran out of the camp in a single file line. So they follow the footprints and they find a couple of the hikers, and unfortunately, they were deceased. The initial thought was they have died of hypothermia, which would make the most sense. We're talking about the Ural Mountains. In winter, it gets well below freezing at that time. However, the more evidence they find, the less likely that started to seem, because many of the bodies had significant injuries. Now, there were skull fractures and blunt force trauma to the chest. One of the bodies was missing their tongue, and they actually couldn't find the tongue anywhere near the site. What was strange about these injuries and traumas that they found on the bodies was that there was no soft tissue damage. Like, you might expect to see some bruising, but that wasn't seen here. And so the cause of death was just shrouded in mystery. Now, they seem to have been attacked by something or someone, or maybe they fell from a high place. It really wasn't clear, but these significant injuries without external signs of injury were very, very concerning. Some of the injuries were thought to be self-inflicted in some cases, but it just really didn't make sense why they would do this. And the more that people wanted answers, the more theories that came out. Investigations into this incident have revealed some really puzzling aspects. The tent had been cut open from the inside, suggesting that they were panicked and tried to escape. Some of the victims sustained really severe internal injuries without outward signs of trauma. Several of the hikers had levels of radiation on their clothing, which just added even more to the mystery. And at one point, the coroner's report came out and said that the injuries that were sustained, like the blunt force trauma to the chest, couldn't possibly have been done by another human being because of the force that would have been required to commit those injuries. Their causes of death have been subject to various theories, including avalanches, animal attacks, infrasound-induced panic, military involvement, and even some extraterrestrial encounters. Now, one of the theories that came out was that the group was possibly attacked by the Mansi tribe people. And the Mansi tribe is a tribe that lives in the Ural Mountains, and they're kind of a secluded tribe. They don't have a lot of interaction with the outside world, and so people theorized that maybe they had come into contact with the hikers, and they did not like that the hikers were trespassing on their land, and maybe there was some kind of fight, and the hikers were killed by the Mansi tribe people. And there wasn't a whole lot of evidence really other than just speculation, except there was a report that a Mansi symbol had been found near the site where the bodies were. But it seems like this also could not have been a possibility because, like the coroner's report said, the injuries could not be explained as being done by another human being, given the force that would be needed to inflict them. So I think that theory has been ruled out. And, some people argued that the Mansi people would understand the terrain and know how to cover up tracks and know how to, survive and navigate in that setting. But again, it doesn't really align with the coroner report, so I think that theory was kind of debunked already. Now, the other theory that kind of seems the most likely, although again, the evidence is not definitive, the theory that an avalanche caused all of this. One theory is that the team did get swept up in an avalanche while they were in the mountains, and this possibly could account for the injuries. If they were hit by rocks or trees or pushed off a ledge, or maybe they got up into the trees to try to escape the avalanche and then fell, that possibly could have accounted for some of the injuries. However, other people argue that if they were hit by branches or rocks, they would have had bruising. And again, some of the reports show that they didn't have outward signs of injuries. Now, another theory was that an avalanche actually did not occur, but the group thought that an avalanche was coming. Perhaps they heard something, or they became paranoid that an avalanche was coming, and so they quickly cut open the tent to get out and tried to move out of the avalanche. And even though one didn't happen, they thought it was happening and they tried to get out. Now, that might explain why they left in a single file line. They were following each other, but it doesn't explain what then happened to them outside of the tent. What caused the injuries? Now, when you start to exclude some of the common sense explanations, such as an avalanche happening, people start jumping to more of the supernatural or more fantasy-based theories. And one of those theories was a Yeti. And if you don't know what a Yeti is essentially the abominable snowman who lives up in the mountains. He's sort of a Bigfoot character. And so a lot of people thought maybe it's a Yeti that got them, and maybe he has superhuman strength and he could have caused the injuries to the people. And this seems like such an absurd theory. Where did this come from? Did they pull it out of thin air? Well, actually, it didn't totally come out of thin air. There was actually a photograph found on one of the cameras that was on the hikers' bodies. I'll pop it up here. This photograph was taken sometime before the incident, but in the general area of the incident. And I have to say, if you showed it to me and you said it's a picture of a Yeti, I would say, yeah, it kind of looks like a Yeti. But it also kind of looks like just a tall guy in snow gear. So, no definitive proof that it was a Yeti, and that also would not explain the radiation found on the clothing. But a Yeti might explain why they panicked, tried to get out of the tent, and if he's got some supernatural strength, maybe that explains the injuries. Now, another sort of sci-fi explanation that people came up with was aliens. And aliens might explain the radiation found on the clothing. And again, this was not another theory that was just pulled out of thin air. There were reports of bright lights being seen over Dyatlov Pass the night that this all happened. In fact, some Mansi hunters reported seeing bright lights, and they described them sort of like the typical UFO sightings that you would think of. And when they developed the film from the cameras found on the bodies of the hikers, even though the cameras were sort of water damaged, it did appear that they had captured some light forms on film. And so this really fed into perhaps they had seen some sort of extraterrestrial beings, and these extraterrestrial beings got mad and attacked them. So that's just another theory. It's kind of out there, but who knows? Now, moving away from sort of the extraterrestrial and supernatural explanations, there were some other psychological explanations that were thrown around. One of them being paradoxical undressing. And this is the idea that some people who suffer from hypothermia will actually experience a burning sensation and they will start to pull off their clothes. So there's a theory out there that perhaps the group were actually experiencing hypothermia. They felt like they were burning and they all start to panic, get out of the tent, and start pulling their clothes off because they felt like they were burning. Now, it sounds like it could be an explanation, but it would be kind of weird for all 9 of them to experience the same thing at the same time. And upon further investigation, it appeared that the last 4 members of the group were actually taking clothes off of the other people who had already passed away so that they could try to warm up. And it appears they even tried to light a fire to try to warm up. So that really kind of debunks that theory that they were experiencing paradoxical undressing. Now, the other psychological phenomenon that was thrown out there was this idea of infrasound induced panic, and this is a real thing. So there is this theory that there's this ultra low frequency of sound that can be caused by the wind, and it's not actually audible to human ears, I don't think, but it can cause paranoia and panic. And so some people theorize that the wind whipping around on the mountain during this severe weather could have caused this low frequency sound and caused them to kind of panic and lose their minds and rip open the tent and go away from camp, which, again, it would kind of be weird for all 9 members of that same party to be experiencing the same thing without one person kind of being the voice of reason, maybe. So, lots of very interesting theories on this one. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is another controversial conspiracy theory, and that was the idea that this could have been some sort of Soviet military cover-up. And the reason people thought this was, for a few years after this happened, it's alleged that the Soviets kept a lot of the information hidden on this case. And one member of the search party came forward and said that they actually saw military boot footprints around the area. And so this led people to think that maybe there was some sort of military cover-up or the military was involved in some way. Some people allege that there was weapons testing, and maybe that is what scared the group. Perhaps they heard rockets going off, or one sinister theory is that the weapons were actually being tested on them, and that's what's caused the injuries. Again, just a conspiracy theory. We don't really know exactly what the proof is for that, other than it's just a theory. So, despite extensive investigations, including a really recent one, a 2019 Russian probe, that concluded that all the hikers were actually killed by an avalanche, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains shrouded in mystery, with many questions still unanswered and, of course, conspiracy theories persisting. The case has captured public fascination and has inspired numerous books, documentaries, and movies attempting to unravel this mystery. So let me know what you think. What are your personal theories about what happened to these hikers? Have you heard of this story before, or is this a new one to you? Let me know in the comments down below, and we'll pop over to the mystery diamond kit in just a second here. Okay, here we are at the end of this section up here. I'm excited that we finally got one on the top row. So it's this cute little star up here. So just another piece of the puzzle. Oh, we're missing a number here. Let's see. So just another piece of the puzzle here. And yep, cute little star. So we finally got one up in the top row. So it's coming along. So let me know what you thought about today's story. Let me know what you think about the diamond painting so far, and we'll keep plugging along on it. Thank you so much for watching. If you would, please give me a thumbs up. I'll see you on the next Mystery Monday. Bye.